Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first in-person meeting for January 30th. Roll call. All members of council are present. I'll ask everyone to please stand for the territorial land acknowledgement, statement and moment of reflection, and the national anthem, please.
We acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Kanien'kehá:ka peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within.
Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur des principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Thank you very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup. Item number 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. We have an addition under 18B, Councillor Deakin for East York Restoration Project. Anything else, members of council? No? Item 5, motion to approve the agenda as amended. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Hearing seeing none. Item 7, l'adoption des procès-verbaux. Procès-verbal de la séance extraordinaire du Conseil du 12 décembre 2022. Procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 19 décembre 2022. Rapport CS10-2022 relatif aux questions discutées à huis clos concernant le contrat à l'entrepreneur pour les plans de construction pour la rénovation du centre communautaire Camille Piché en bibliothèque sur Salle-Lembrun, 19 décembre 2022. Motion d'approuver les procès-verbaux tels que présentés. Besoin de proposer un appuyeur. Proposé conseiller Deakin, seconded Councillor Lalonde. Questions, comments? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Prochain item, we're going to item number 19, consultation publique. Mr. Fonan, Madame Tremblay. In regards to the planned subdivision request, owner Normand Rochon, part of Lot 9, Concession 8, Saint-Augustin Road in Embrun.
Bonsoir, membres du conseil. Good evening. I just want to explain a bit why we're here tonight. So basically, the notice, as you know, needs to be sent 20 days in advance of the public meeting. The notice was sent at the beginning of December to be planned for our planning meeting usually that was supposed to be held tonight on the 30th, but because council voted on changes of dates for council meeting, we had to postpone our meeting. But because the notice was already sent, we decided to proceed with the public meeting. So just for your information, usually those public meetings are held at the Planning Advisory Committee, and they are done by the counties. So I would like to introduce Nicolas Denis from the county that will proceed with the public meeting tonight.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, comme mentionné ici, je suis ici pour présenter une demande de plan de lotissement sub 001-2022. Donc, on va commencer avec des mentions légales. Je vais alterner entre l'anglais et le français. Donc, si jamais il y a des questions à la fin, ça va me faire plaisir de les répondre en anglais ou en français. So this public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act and is being held to provide an opportunity for the public to voice their comments and concerns with regards to the proposed application. Si une personne ou un organisme public ne présente pas d'observation orale lors d'une réunion publique ou ne présente pas d'observation écrite aux comtés unis de Prescott et Russell à l'égard du plan de lotissement proposé, avant que l'autorité approbatrice n'approuve ou ne refuse d'approuver la demande proposée, la personne ou l'organisme public n'a pas le droit d'interjeter un appel de la décision des comtés unis devant le tribunal ontarien de l'aménagement du territoire. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the United Counties of Prescott and Russell in respect of the draft plan of subdivision before the approval authority gives or refuses to give approval relating to this application, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell to the Ontario Land Tribunal. De plus, la personne ou l'organisme public ne peut pas être joint en tant que partie à l'audition d'un appel dont est saisi le tribunal de l'Ontario, à moins qu'il existe, de l'avis de cette dernière, des motifs raisonnables de le faire. And take notice that only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Municipality of Russell, or any public body that made oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions to the approval authority of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell and or the Municipality of Russell before the decision was made may appeal this decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Okay. Donc, au niveau de la consultation publique, un avis de demande et avis de réunion publique a été envoyé aux propriétaires à l'intérieur d'une zone tampon de 120 mètres et aussi aux agences prescrites par la loi sur l'aménagement du territoire. Ceci a été réalisé le 28 novembre 2022. Et aussi, une affiche a été installée dans les deux langues, anglais et en français, sur le terrain visé le 8 décembre. So on this slide, we can see the signs that were installed on the subject property along St. Augustin Road. For the draft plan of subdivision. So on this slide, we can see the draft plan of subdivision that was submitted by the owner, Monsieur Rochon. So this property is located in Embrun, and to be more precise, it's located to the north of Embrun. So this property is quite large. It's 34.4 hectares, or acres, I should say. It's approximately 10 hectares. On the eastern portion of the property, you can see the York Creek running along the northern and eastern portion. And on the plan itself, you can also see the floodplain that's associated with this creek. The property contains a frontage along St. Augustin Road. There's approximately 150 meters there, and also a 20-meter frontage along La Chaîne Street to the south. So these will be the two access points to the subdivision. The owner is proposing a mixed residential units for the subdivision. So 80% of the subdivision will be single-family dwellings. As you can see on the plan here, it's mostly on the outskirts of the subdivision that's going to be single families. And also, the developer is proposing semi-detached dwellings that you can see, I believe it's block 79 to block 99. Which is located more in the central portion of the subdivision, and also townhouse dwelling units that are proposed for block 100 to block 106. In addition, the owner is proposing 2 blocks for pedestrian access. I believe it's block 108 and block 109. It's hard to see here on the plan. Yep. And also there's a block that's for open space and a stormwater management pond located on the eastern portion of the property itself. In total, the owner is proposing 5 new local streets to be added for this subdivision. Donc, je vais répéter en français. La proposition de plan de lotissement a été soumise par Normand Rochon. Il vise à créer un nouveau plan de lotissement. Le plan de lotissement proposé comprend un total de 148 unités d'habitation résidentielle développées avec des services municipaux complets. La proposition consiste en la création de 107 lots et blocs qui seront aménagés selon une combinaison de maisons unifamiliales, maisons jumelées, maisons arrangées, 2 blocs pour les sentiers de piétons, 5 nouvelles rues et 1 bloc pour le bassin de gestion des eaux pluviales. L'accès aux nouveaux lots se fera par le chemin Saint-Augustin et la rue La Chaîne. Les terrains en question sont identifiés comme secteur des politiques urbaines au plan officiel des Comtés unis de Prescott et Russell et comme secteur des politiques résidentielles au plan officiel de la municipalité, ce qui autorise de nouveaux projets résidentiels comme celle-ci. Donc ici, c'est en anglais. So on this slide here, we can see the subject property and also the schedules of the official plan of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. So the entire property here is located within the urban policy area. In addition, you can see that there's a blue line here. It might be hard to see, but this represents the York Creek located on the eastern portion of the property that's identified as a fish habitat. And an environmental impact study was prepared by Montcaster Environmental Planning to support this application as well. On this slide, ou sur cette slide ici, on peut voir les cédules du plan officiel de la municipalité de Russell. Donc, l'entièreté de la propriété se retrouve à l'intérieur du secteur résidentiel, ou la désignation résidentielle. Et ce qui est aussi, on peut voir sur cette slide, c'est que les propriétés avoisinantes, soit à l'est ou à l'ouest ou au sud, se retrouvent aussi dans le secteur résidentiel au niveau du plan officiel. Donc ici, on vient rajouter des utilisations qui sont compatibles avec le bâti existant. In terms of the zoning bylaw 2018-094 of the township, the subject property is mostly located within the R1 or residential 1 holding zone and also within a floodplain zone. The R1 residential 1 zone, with the planning rationale that was submitted with the application identifies that all the single-family dwelling properties are in conformity with the zone requirements for R1. And in addition, le propriétaire a soumis un amendement au règlement de zonage 2022-024 ici pour venir ajouter des utilisations telles que les semi-détachés ou aussi les maisons en rangée. Donc ici, la zone serait changée de R1 à R2 et R3. Et en plus, une zone, un special exception ou une exception sur la zone pour venir réduire la façade à 9 mètres pour les semi-détachés. Et pour les maisons en rangée, ce serait de réduire les cours intérieures latérales à 2 mètres. Si je ne me trompe pas, c'est de 3 mètres à 2 mètres ici. So on this slide here, it's a great slide to show exactly where the subject property is located in contrast to the entire village. So as you can see, it's located on the extreme northern portion of the village of Emblem. You can also see that it's one of the last big chunks of parcels to be developed. And you can also see that there's numerous residential uses that surround this property. In addition, you can see that the York Creek, which is a tributary to the Castor River, also goes to the east and meets the Castor River a little bit further. In addition, the property is approximately 800 meters away from Notre Dame, which is the core area of the village of Emblem, where you can see numerous commercial, institutional, and community service available for these new residents, which is estimated to be approximately 450 new residents for this subdivision. There are numerous parks and also community facilities in proximity. Donc, sur cette slide ici, nous avons un plan qui démontre les services qui vont être ajoutés sur la propriété. Donc, tout simplement, cette slide, c'était pour vous démontrer que les propriétés vont être desservies par l'eau municipale, les égouts et aussi un bloc pour le stormwater management pond ici. So right now, we are doing a public meeting for this file. So for the next step here will be to obtain all the comments from the public and from our commenting agencies. And once this has been reviewed and analyzed, we will then proceed with a decision for this file. À la suite de la décision, il y aura une période d'appel de 20 jours qui est standard, comme prescrit par la loi sur l'aménagement du territoire. If you wish to be notified of the decision, you must make a written request to the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. And here the email is planning@prescott-russell.on.ca. Et voilà nos informations contacts aussi pour se rendre en personne. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Members of council, any questions, comments at this point in time? Hearing seen none. I just have one question, and peut-être c'est plus pour Madame Tremblay. I'm not sure if it's at this stage, but I know we have a pedestrian bridge that goes over the tributary in a little bit southern. Are we planning one with this project as well?
No, so we're planning to have a pedestrian walking trail along the same creek, but just one bridge, so not
Okay.
two bridges. So they would have to connect at the existing bridge.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. With that, I believe, Madame Tremblay, Nicolas, we actually have to have a public question period for this item specifically. Therefore, if there's anybody from the public that has questions in regards to this specific item at this point in time, I'll invite you up to the lectern to state your name and address for the record.
Charles Armstrong, 85 Castlebow Street in Embrun. 3 questions. The area that's designated floodplain and the adjoining areas, it's also designated as it looks like unstable land. Is that ceded to the township or the counties when the development is complete? Or what happens to that land?
Through you, Mr. Fon, and Madame Tremblay ou Nicolas. So block 110 on the draft plan of subdivision will be transferred to the municipality.
That entire block, everything. Okay, okay. Just I want to point at the map here for a second, if you don't mind. I can't make that out. It's not very clear. What is that area right there, that section of land?
Au bout du cercle, the narrow part that's.
It looks like an easement, but I can't make it out.
I believe it was planned for easement for services.
Okay, okay. So that too would be ceded to the township.
Yeah, so the blocks 108, 109, and that easement as well would be transferred to the township.
Okay, that's fine. Is there a playground planned in this area?
Madame Tremblay?
So no, at this point, there's no parks plan in this subdivision. So after consultation with the Parks and Recs department and the developer, we've decided not to proceed with a park at that location.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask why that is?
Madame Tremblay?
I'm not sure. Maybe Madame Guittard would be better positioned to answer that question.
Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So if I remember when we met with the developer, that's a few months ago, we had a discussion because there's a park very close to the same subdivision, the Camelot Park. And when we looked at the map, it's like barely 2 streets away. There will be about 2 streets away. So we decided to, instead of asking for another park, we would ask for the cash in lieu and expand the Camelot Park with more amenities in the park.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I'll have to look at that on a bigger map.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Alors, Madame Tremblay, Nicolas, I think that ends the public session. Perfect. We'll move on the agenda. We'll go back. Item 8, presentations. Il n'y a pas. Numéro 9, délégation. Il n'y a pas. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. First one is item A, the Township of Russell Declaration acknowledging the first 125 years of Russell Village. In 2023, as part of the Village of Russell 125th anniversary celebrations, the Township of Russell would like to recognize the incorporation of the Village of Russell by the United Counties of Prescott-Russell in 1898. Further, the Township would like to recognize this significant milestone and invite all residents to share with event organizers, the Township, and the Village of Russell trustees in the many activities celebrating life in our region. Join us in this historic year by volunteering, participating, or watching our community events throughout 2023. Item B, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, October 20th and December 15th, 2022. And item C, Paylist for December 2022. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Merci beaucoup. Allez à l'item 11, rapport des départements du comité du conseil, reports from Department and Council Committee. Item A, Strategic Plan 2023 to 2026, report CAO 01 2023. That council received report CAO 01 2023 dated January 30th, 2023 for endorsement and approval. Mr. Fawnin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for this time. If you're okay, I'm going to give a little bit of a context statement just to help the conversation.
Yeah, is it me or I don't think the mic's working properly.
That should be better.
There you go.
Yep, sorry, that was me. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. If you'll permit me, I'm going to just give a little bit of an opening statement to situate the conversation. As the name implies, the strategic plan is intended to be very forward-leaning, not just for the next 6 months or the year in front of us, but hopefully for years to come. This means that the focus of Council should remain firmly on the vision and the strategies set out to support that vision. Having said this, specific and measurable objectives accompany the plan in order to give Council and residents a good sense of how we intend to support the achievement of the strategies which support your vision. It's worth highlighting that the objectives at the annex to this report are placed in some semblance of priority order. That doesn't mean that the last objective is not a priority, simply that in terms of decision-making about the allocation of scarce resources, and I'm referring here to people, time, and funding, that some objectives may not be completed to the same standard as others. For me as CAO, the strategic plan is all about alignment. Alignment between the Council's vision and its broad guidance, and alignment right down to the specific tasks and functions carried out by individual and collective programs in the Township administration. Without alignment, we run the risk of simply doing a bunch of stuff with no overall aim in mind. The potential for distractions abound when one is executing a plan. Strategic discipline and flexibility are both required in equal measure as we go forward. This does not also mean that a plan needs to be an inflexible, immovable, or unchangeable document. The plan must be a living document, responding to changes in the situation as they present themselves, and the plan must be open to innovation, but it has to remain focused on the overall vision and strategies for the Township's development for its near and not so near future. The 23-26 strategic plan is developed to have a cascading effect in its execution. Vision, then strategies, then the objectives which support the achievement of each strategy, and at the internal operational level within the administration, performance indicators which help us assess whether we were successful or whether we need to adjust either resources, expectations, or the plan itself. Going forward, I therefore invite Council to carefully review this plan and with particular regard to the objectives you see before you to consider whether these objectives meet your requirements for the development of the Township. Again, there's nothing wrong with adding or deleting specific objectives to the plan, accepting, of course, that for every objective we add, it is possible, if not probable, that another objective may fall a little bit further down the priority order. It's also worth noting that as we consider our objectives in their priority order, specific discussions regarding the cost of executing these objectives will be the subject of further discussion when we get to the 2023 financial budget. Finally, I want to just publicly thank the staff for very exceptional input and consultations in the ongoing development of the plan, which have been months in the making. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fawnin. Council, we've all had an opportunity to go through these. I have a few comments, but I'll open the floor. If anybody has some changes they're looking to implement or questions in regards to strategic plan, I'll invite you. Councillor Tarnowski?
I'd like to bring up 2 points. First of all, excellent work. Thank you very much. My first question would be, on the objectives, I noticed some of them have timelines and others are vague. Is that intentional?
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for the question. So the short answer is that, yes, some of them were intended to be more ongoing. So there's some of them that are fixed, and you'll notice that some of them are quite almost operational in focus. They're almost a task, but they're a task that has a greater impact. Some of them, I wanted to make sure that we have timelines for the broader initiative itself. When we get down to the operational level, subsequent to the endorsement of the plan, my intention is to put key performance indicators to all of the objectives with my staff, and all of the indicators will have timelines on them as well. So regardless of whether there's a timeline to the objective itself, in effect, the KPIs will lend themselves to it. Some of them, as you notice, are quite far into the mandate. I was trying to push to have as many of the objectives be completed in as short a time as possible, obviously, but being reasonable with staff time and resources, we have to look out for it. I also think that some of the objectives will probably become a little bit more defined as we move along. This is sort of the result of a series of retreats and consultations that we had over the last few months, sort of narrow down what the strategies actually are intending to do. So the timing side at the objective level, I think, is more of a guide at this, and I want to maintain a fairly significant flexibility to it, and I'm hoping within the next few months we see those timelines become a little bit clearer.
Thank you. Second question, Councillor Tarnowski?
My second question is just a clarification. For 1B, you have implement a climate change action plan by December 23, and then in brackets, net zero. The climate action plan, is the goal of the climate action plan to have us at net zero by 2023? I just want to clarify what that date means.
Thank you, Councillor Tarnowski. I might defer the question a little bit to the Director of Infrastructure, but I would like to say that no, the intention is not to complete, or would that I could do that, would be pulling one out of a hat, but no, this is more about establishing a plan to get us towards that area, but I don't know if Mr. Bourgon has another comment.
Mr. Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So just to add, the plan will give us more of a direction. So we'll have items to put in next year's budget and also in our business plan moving forward.
So just to clarify, it's to have the plan done in 2023, and then we'll be working off the plan, whatever timeline we set forward.
And that's an item that was already in our
Previous.
last plan. So it's just to complete that work.
Okay, perfect.
And sorry, just sorry to interrupt. In terms of the discussion, I think there was some other discussion I've had with others with regard to this plan. We'd have to probably divide this between net zero for the functioning of the administration, the corporation itself, and then our efforts to promote sustainable development in the community writ large within our community. So those are almost two separate issues. One is about sustainable development within the administration. The rest, and there's another element that we're looking to put in about sustainable development for the community of Russell.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Deakin?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those questions, and as well to the staff for the wonderful work you've done on this so far. It's really exciting to see what's taking shape from the vision work that we did in prior to the holidays there. Looking at number 5, strategy number 5, I just want to circle down to it. Thank you for heading down there too, Joanne. We will foster empathy, trust, and equity in every initiative supporting residents, businesses, and township staff. We do have a community diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and it was in this section that I was hoping to see some clear objectives that they could tie their work to. With that in mind, I'd like to propose an addition, the addition of an objective in there, and that would be one reflecting, just let me pull it up here. The township will examine its initiatives and activities through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. Just a little bit of language there that the committee can sink their teeth into and work from.
Thank you. Mr. Fawn?
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. That's an excellent suggestion, so definitely taking that on.
Members of council are okay with that? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Councillor Lalonde?
Oui, moi aussi, j'aimerais remercier le staff et le CAO pour le travail qui a été fait. Je pense que a lot of good work went into this, a lot of arm wrestling, and I think we've come up with something that I think is achievable and gives us some goals and objectives to work with, especially for the new councillors here. Kind of brings that focus to it, so I appreciate all that work.
Thank you. I do have some additions or conversations, if you will. If we can go to strategy 4. Strategy 4 will focus on sustainable development while promoting the character of our community. I found that there was a little bit lacking on the character of our community side, so there's a few additions I'd like to add there. I think one for me would be, I'd word it, foster mutually beneficial partnerships with community organizations. I think one of our strengths in Russell Township is the relationship we have, so I think we should be building on those. I guess we'll go one by one. Is everybody okay with that one? I see heads shaking. Okay. Second one, foster programs to increase volunteerism in the community. I think that all our social organizations are struggling with la relève, if you will, in volunteerism. I think we should be trying to lend a hand in some way, shape, form. So if members of council are okay with that, I'd like to add that. I see head shaking. Councillor Tarnowski?
I completely agree with you, Mr. Mayor, but I'm just not sure how we can action something like that. Encouraging, like fostering, like as a township, does that mean providing, free space for gatherings and stuff like that? I just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think that's the type of discussions we would have. For example, in the past, you've suggested committee members get free walking passes, that kind of stuff. So it could be some kind of program to put in place to what role, but I think that will be developed further along. Mr. Fawnin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just going to agree. The exciting thing about plans like this is when you have a good long-term sort of vision and even the objectives themselves are strategically focused, the work becomes in sort of the indicator. And how do you assess what does success look like? How do you describe that? And I think you mentioned already a couple of items, about giving passes. How do you create initiatives? How do you create incentives? Those can be turned into if you want to call them subordinate objectives or indicators that you would measure later on. So there's room, and I look forward to working with some of the committees to see if the committees can help us put some meat on some of the specific objectives. Staff have already got plenty of ideas to move a lot of these forward, so I don't think any of them are untouchable.
Okay. So are we okay with that second suggestion as well? Third one in the same pillar, if you will, I had in mind was increase beautification efforts through partnerships, similar to the other two, but having a concentration. We talked about volunteerism, now about beautification in our communities. I think there's opportunities to work there as well. So again, as Mr. Fawnin stated, it would be, once we have the vision, then it's working in the details, trying to put meat on the bones, as it were. Any thoughts on that one? Are we good, Mr. Fawnin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment to the addition to that. In playing with the wording, I would put down increased beautification through community and business partnerships. I don't know if that's too narrow for you or not narrow enough.
Nope, through community and business partnership, I think that's a good addition. Bring everybody to the table. Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I think the timing of that suggestion is excellent too, because of the initiative now started up in Russell for the 125 anniversary and the beautification projects that are being teed up there. So I think that works great. And it's that kind of initiative that if it can get that extra bit of support and encouragement on the part of Township, make it go a long way.
Perfect. I have some more, if I'll continue. Next would be strategy 6. Our community will develop in a safe, healthy, and accessible manner. These are in regards to some items that are already listed there, but I thought I just want to suggest some tweaking. When we look at item F, attract additional medical and professional services to our township, I was thinking that maybe we should reword it to say, work with mandated partners for the attraction of medical and professional services to Russell Township. I don't think this is something we can necessarily do on our own, so I want to highlight that we should be working with partners in that aspect. So if members of council are okay with that, I think we should be moving forward. Yeah, I see head shaking. Next one, develop an affordable housing strategy, same thing. Work with mandated partners in the creation of affordable housing strategy encompassing Russell Township. We're going to discuss this a little bit later, but there are regional projects going on as well, so I want to make sure that we're working with everybody involved to try and, make sure we're taking care of Russell Township, but it's not, just seeing how we can fit in the puzzle in the broader context of things. So everybody okay with that wording? I see yes. And the last one was, let me bring it up here, was item K, which was install electricity and security cameras in Jonathan Petrie Park. I thought, a great idea. I found it very, very specific, though. I thought maybe we should be something like improve safety and security in our parks, not specifically that parks, but overall in general, the safety and security. Obviously, that would be one of the projects in that, but I think just tweaking that so it's not a specific item, but a general concept. I'm not sure if that makes sense, Mr. Fonan.
Very much so. Yeah, it's good to keep these a little bit more at the strategic level. Thank you.
And that's it for me. Yeah, anything else to add, members of council? Anything else you'd like to discuss, Mr. Fonan, on this file?
We'll be coming back in a few weeks to ask you for lots of money to do all this.
All right. So just for clarification, the resolution reads that council receive report CAO 01-2023 dated January 30th, 2023 for endorsement and approval. So you're not looking to implement, like we've indicated the changes. You don't need to come back for a second, to revisit this item. We don't have to make any amendments to this. It was just overall, once that's taken the comments into context, correct?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that's the case, and now it's up to administration to operationalize it.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go to the next item. Le prochain item, règlement affectation d'une voie publique, rapport PD 06-2023. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport PD 06-2023 daté du 30 janvier 2023 et adopte le règlement dédiant le bloc 21 sur le plan 50M 335 comme voie publique étant le boulevard Central Park à Russell et le bloc 239 sur le plan 50M 317 comme voie publique étant le boulevard Central Park et que le règlement soit déposé sur le titre de la propriété. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Questions, comments, members of council? Pretty straightforward stuff. Anything to add, Madame Tremblay? No. We'll go to the next item. Item C, zoning bylaw amendment, report PD 10-2023. Property owned by Melanie Construction, Inc. and described as being vacant land situated on Stargaze Street and Moonlight Drive in Russell within the Sunset Flats subdivision. The council received report PD 10-2023 dated January 30th, 2023 and approved the zoning amendment application submitted by Melanie Construction, Inc., care of Julien Patnaud, to remove the holding H as follows, from residential 1A with holding to residential 1. Questions, comments, members of council? Seeing none, hearing none. Anything to add, Madame Tremblay? Parfait. We'll move on to the next item. Item D, autorisation pour exécuter une entente de lotissement, rapport PD 11-2023, propriétaire 502-6541 Ontario Inc., phase 1 pour une parcelle de terrain légalement décrite comme étant une partie du lot 13, concession 3 dans le village de Russell. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport PD 11-2023 daté du 30 janvier 2023 et que le Conseil approuve le règlement autorisant le maire et la greffière à exécuter et à apposer le sceau à une entente de lotissement entre le 502-6541 Ontario Inc. pour la phase 1 du lotissement et la Corporation du canton de Russell pour une parcelle de terrain légalement décrite comme étant une partie de la partie du lot 13, concession 3, dans le village de Russell. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Hearing, seeing none. Madame Tremblay, quelque chose à ajouter?
No, I just want to mention, I said no, but yes. Sorry about that. Je voudrais juste faire référence à la réunion publique qu'on a eue cet après-midi, tantôt. Juste pour démontrer que la première étape, c'est la réunion publique qu'on a eue. Ce n'est pas les mêmes subdivisions, mais ce que vous voyez devant vous, comme vous allez voir pour la subdivision qu'on a eue, la réunion publique, ça, c'est la dernière étape. Donc, c'est maintenant où on prépare l'entente de subdivision qui est enregistrée sur les titres, puis les lots sont créés. Donc, vous allez voir la construction qui va commencer comparativement à la rencontre où on a eu tout à l'heure, où c'est les premières étapes, ça peut prendre 2 à 3 ans avant qu'on voit de la construction. Donc, je vais juste démontrer au niveau du processus que ça, c'est la dernière étape avant que les permis de construction puissent commencer à être émis pour cette subdivision-là. Parfait.
Merci beaucoup pour la clarification. Prochain item, next item, item F, 2023 Audit Service Plan from BDO. FS Verbal Report that Council received the 2023 Audit Service Plan from BDO dated January 30th, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I think you skipped
one. Ah, excuse-moi. E. Item E, authorization to execute a subdivision agreement, report PD 12-2023. Property owned by Manley Construction, Inc., Phase 4B for a parcel of land legally described as part of Lot 13, Concession 3 in the Village of Russell. That council received report PD 12-2023 dated January 30th, 2023, and that council approves the bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a subdivision agreement between Manley Construction, Inc. for Phase 4B of the subdivision and the Corporation of the Township of Russell for a parcel of land legally described as part of Lot 13, Concession 3, Village Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything you add, Madame Tremblay?
Non, merci.
Parfait. Item F. Plan de service d'Audi 2023 de BDO, que le Conseil reçoive la présentation du plan des services d'Audi 2023 de BDO daté du 30 janvier 2023. Pretty standard stuff every year. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add, Monsieur Godin?
Non, merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Parfait. With that, we'll move on to the next item. Item G, Positive Ticketing Initiative, Verbal Report. Madame Bourdeau, I like this one.
Bonsoir, membres du Conseil. Je vous présente, nous introduisons un programme de contravention positive pour récompenser et encourager les jeunes qui font des bonnes actions dans notre communauté. Donc, nos agents de la sécurité publique et de la réglementation donneront des contraventions positives aux jeunes de la communauté pour leurs actions bénéfiques et leurs actes de bonté. Chaque contravention comprend une carte cadeau à une entreprise locale et une passe pour le Postmaster de Russell. Si vous voyez une personne de 16 ans ou moins qui contribue à la positivité, faites-nous le savoir. Contactez notre service de la sécurité publique et de la réglementation. Nous remercions tout particulièrement nos groupes communautaires et les propriétaires d'entreprises locales qui fournissent des prix dans ce programme, notamment le Kin Club, la Légion, le Giant Tiger, McDonald's et Tim Hortons.
Parfait. Great program. I think this is something that, a little bit of encouragement to our youth for doing good deeds is always a good sign. So, questions, comments, members of council? Monsieur Lalonde, conseiller Lalonde?
Juste à savoir comment est-ce qu'on va en faire sa promotion, comment c'est prévu pour faire la promotion de ça.
Merci. Mr. Fonin, Madame Bourdeau?
Oui, Megan a préparé une
Relevé de presse.
Une relève de presse, puis elle va le mettre sur nos
Médias sociaux.
médias sociaux puis notre site web.
Okay. And then I'm sure as soon as one or two kids get a positivity ticket with a gift card attached, they're going to be telling all their friends. Anything else, members of council? No? Merci beaucoup, Madame Bourdeau. Great initiative. I look forward at seeing the results. Next item, item H, Herba Municipal Drain Modification Report ISPW 01-2023. That council receive report ISPW 01-2023 dated January 30th, 2023, and approve 1. Paul Desrosiers requests to continue the process to modify Hébert Municipal Drain. 2. That council appoint Of Shade Group, Inc., under Section 78 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, to be the engineering firm working on the Hébert Drain modification. Questions, comments, members of council? Hearing, seeing none. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon? Pretty standard stuff. Don't see them often, but it's a standard process. Item I, préoccupation de la sécurité rue Craig, rapport ISPW 02-2023. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport ISPW 02-2023, daté du 30 janvier 2023, et approuve le plan proposé pour le rétablissement de la rue Craig. I think we're going to have questions, comments on this one, but Mr. Fawnin, Monsieur Bourgon, I'll let you begin the present discussion on this one.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So this report came after a presentation that we did receive from our resident on December 5th. So my goal was really to highlight the 5 items or 5 initiatives that will be part of the reinstatement of Craig Street following the storm sewer replacements. And those items, as we believe, will address, 1, traffic calming in that segment, reduce speed, and increase safety to the pedestrian. And the other steps of the report, just to mention, if the request from the resident were address part of those 5 elements, or if it's something more that it's either responsibility of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, which mean council will have to determine if they want to send a resolution supporting that initiative or not.
Questions, comments, members of council? I think we'll probably have a few. Councillor Deakin, then followed by Councillor Tarnowski.
Thanks very much. Sorry, I've got a bit of feedback here. I just wanted to say that I'm really pleased to see that staff is currently investigating the photo radar option. I think that that's a great potential step for us to take in that area. I was also wondering if Mr. Bourgon could provide more information about the rationale for not recommending the 40-kilometer limit or community safety zone in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. At this point, that zone, being a school zone, is already 40 kilometers an hour during the school period. And with all the other measures for pedestrian safety, we believe that there's no need to lower the speed limit to 40 all the time. And it's also not the township responsibility or jurisdiction. So if council decide to do so, council will have to pass a resolution asking the counties to have that permanent speed limit to 40.
Follow up?
Yeah, just a follow-up. Would the community group have the option to go directly to the counties if a resolution was not passed here at the township level, or would this put that question to rest?
Monsieur Bourgon, I can try and answer that one.
I was going to say, to be honest, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it would be if council did not support it and they could make a presentation to the United Counties, that's not a problem. I can almost guarantee the first thing the United Counties would say is, we want a resolution from the Township Council. So I think that's how that would go down. So they'd flip it back down to us, asking for us to support the resolution. Councillor Tarnowski?
Merci. I've got a few questions. One Councillor Deakin just asked is why we are not recommending a safety zone. In your answer on that question, I'm still not getting a clear rationale. You say that there is already the reduced speed zone during school hours, and so there's no need for it, in your opinion. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And combined with the other improvements that we are doing in that segment.
Okay. All right. Request for that came for G, like in G, as I think is an important one, like a transitional part off Craig, where we're coming into the village, and I feel that and I'm wondering if the measures that we're implementing are going to address that. I think coming into the village, the transition should be further back where we're requesting people to slow down, because the community is kind of growing out there, and I think there is opportunity there maybe for a stop or something like that. Is that not an opportunity there?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Last year we did implement or installed some bold fixable posts near the Tim Horton on Craig Street. As for a stop sign, depending of where you were thinking, like the proper analysis to determine if it's warranted or not will have to be made. And again, a decision goes to the United County of Prescott Russell.
Okay.
Follow-up?
Yeah, just another one. In the way I was reading it, we're going to be adding a crossing there, but the report states that the school doesn't think it needs a crossing there. Did I read that correctly?
Currently, there's 2 crossing near the school, like one on, if I can say, on each side of the property. Since we are extending the sidewalk or putting a sidewalk along the park, we will be removing the one at McDougall, which that's the one the school doesn't like. They prefer kids coming near the school. So by having one crossing with the flashing lights like we have here in Embrun, will increase the safety of those children, and that's what the school are supporting. An improvement to that crossing.
So just having the one crossing as opposed to 2 different crossings.
Exactly.
Councillor Tarnowski?
Okay, thank you. Just one other point. One of the aspects in the request from the residents was consultation. And I think what we're saying is that we have an information session telling them what we're doing, but I don't feel that there is a consultation. And I know that we've gone to tender. So I'm just trying to understand, is it past the consultation phase? Like once we go to tender, we say this is what we want. We can't really change anything. So I'm not sure that we actually asked residents for, like an opportunity to kind of discuss this. And so maybe I'm just misunderstanding the process, or maybe the wording is not accurate. Mais comme je vois plus que c'est comme one direction information. Once we get that, we're just going to give them information on what's going to be, but there's not going to be any more consultation. Am I wrong in that, or?
So, Monsieur Bourgon, I believe you've met with the different groups and residents multiple times in the last few months?
I did meet with the group at one time.
Okay.
But the restore or the replacement of the sewer has been an ongoing work for us. And yes, you're right, we're only planning an information session to share the plan, construction timeline, information of the contractor, phasing of the construction. So that was our intent all along for that construction project.
And just maybe to add or clarify a little bit, that's in regards to the entire project, not just specifically the speeding request, but the entirety of the project?
The entire project, which includes the five items that are listed in my report. So
Right.
it's 5 items that will be adding to the streetscape of
Right.
Craig Street.
But just to clarify as well, is there's certain aspects, for example, signage, bollards, that's not part of the tender process. That has nothing to do, like the bump outs, yes, the physical. But if ever we wanted to talk about different signs, local traffic only signs,
That's
bollards.
something that could be done next year, or the consultation, if council wish to do that, that can happen, doesn't affect our construction project.
Okay. Anything to add on that, Mr. Fun?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add a little bit of additional context to this discussion. There have been a number of interventions by community members to discuss this issue, and Mr. Bourgon has spoken with individuals and small groups of individuals from the neighborhood who have been subsequently involved in providing information and input. In the expert analysis conducted on the 3 issues at play here, the speeding writ large, the school safety zone, and the broad community safety zone have all been analyzed with experts in the field. We've also sought outside consultation with regard to speeding. This is one of the main entrances to the community. It happens to be in a street which was built many years ago, but now it is a main interest to the community. I've lived in quite a few cities in Canada and lived on a few of these types of streets. Fact of the matter is those streets normally have a 50 posted zone. I think the plan as it currently stands for both the recreation of Craig Street in terms of the sewage system, coupled with the other safety measures that Mr. Bourgon's team has put together to recommend, I think address effectively virtually all of those issues. The last remaining piece is in fact the speed radar issue, which we're now addressing with consultations with outside experts as well. So I do believe that we've covered off the issues that are of concern. I remain obviously to be told otherwise by community members, but I have strong confidence that the team has done a very good analysis in this regard, and we're as good as we can get now. And obviously, there's always room, even after the initial construction next year, to do further improvements if required to change the situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fonin. I can just add as well, I've had discussions with retired and current traffic specialists, and not one of them recommended lowering the speed to 40 kilometers an hour on a permanent basis. Everyone said basically the same thing. If you don't have enforcement, it's not going to make a difference. It's the photo radar that's the important piece in this context. So, Councillor Deakin, then Conseiller Tanoski.
Thank you for that context. I just wanted to ask about, you know, we're here a year from now, and we have this beautiful new Craig Street work that's been accomplished on time and on budget, I'm sure, for the United Counties. I'm just wondering, at what point do we know how these measures are working? You know, we give it a shot and we see what happens, right? So I'm just wondering, in the steps as well to explore the speed camera option, how will this timing all work out? So let's put us a year from now, and what will the steps look like to know that those measures are in fact taking hold, and how will that play into the speed camera exploration as well?
Thank you very much, Mr. Fon and Mr. Bourgon. We have portable radar signs that will be able to be installed after the work, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So the following summer, we'll be able to do analysis of the speeding, so traffic counts, and do another speed traffic analysis.
Okay. Councillor Deakin?
I just want to double check, is that something that would be standard, or is that something that is going to come through in a plan? Just want to make sure that that's something that would definitely happen, or would that come to council to make that decision again?
No, Mr. Bourgon?
It's definitely a first, doing that type of big revamp of a road segment here in Russell. But to do those type of analysis, it's something that will be done operationally, just part of our regular operation.
Yeah, we have a few of those mobile radar signs, if I remember well.
Yes, we do. Yeah. When we can keep them operational. People from the outside like pieces of those radars.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's part of our rotation to do that, and the county does traffic counts as well, part of our roads.
Okay, Mr. Fonin, something to add?
Just to add to that, the issue of speed cameras, I'm almost separating them. That's happening concurrently. So regardless of the work about to commence on Craig Street for refurbishment, the speed camera issue is being addressed as a separate issue right now. We should have something to come to council within the next month or two.
Perfect. Councillor Tanoski, and then Conseiller Lalonde, and then Conseiller Larry.
So I would just like to propose, so we're just receiving the report, but there's two things that I would like to see possibly added here. One would be, rather than information sharing, like where we just provide information when we have an update, where we can have more of an open consultation so that it's a two-way process. I think there's a good opportunity there. If there are other items to be discussed, or I think that's important to have that with our residents. And my other point is I would like to see something proposed on Craig Street prior to where whether it's bollards or something where it will kind of reduce the speed, not just when the photo radar is there and not just when the photo radar is working. We were just told that it doesn't, those machines don't work always and stuff like that. So is there something that we can do further on Craig Street prior to coming into town, which will kind of start slowing down the traffic at that point?
So just to confirm, you're talking west of Forest Road, I assume?
Yeah, we're at Forest Road or west of Forest Road, yeah.
Okay, Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, that, like, is something like that, like, if we're talking only Bullard, that can fall under our safety plan. So that would be an operational expense.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
min-
already part of our, of my budget to implement those locations.
Yeah, so we currently have, we already have, if I remember well, we already received permission from the United Counties to put bollards on Craig Street.
Yeah, I would still have that discussion with them in terms of that location, but there was already some located close to Mill. So maybe because of our PXO being installed, maybe there's a matter of like just relocating closer to Force.
Okay.
Something that could be done just operationally.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, just maybe a few comments. One is, I mean, maybe you all know that I've lived on the corner of that street for 40 years, coming into Russell in 1983, so I've walked up that street thousands of times. There has been speeding issues. Being on the Planning Advisory Committee a long time ago, we had this grappling with speed signs, and I was reminded by the mayor back then that you can put up all the signs you want, but if you're not going to provide the enforcement to go with them, you're wasting your time. I was conflicted about maybe the idea of going with a 40 or reduced speed, but that issue on signs and enforcement keeps coming back. I think the opportunity for cameras is a better solution because it answers the enforcement, or it deals with the enforcement piece, which the signage has, in terms of speed signs, less of a chance of doing. We have the same situation on concession, and we're in front of arenas, 2 other schools, and we're seeing traffic still operating at a higher speed than it should, with all the signage that's there. So I'm looking forward to the camera option. I think we have maybe the best chance of succeeding with that in terms of a traffic calming measure, along with the sidewalks to be put in and the rest of it, as far as, protecting pedestrians from the cars driving by, because that's also been a big issue, whether they're driving at the speed limit to begin with. We've always felt way too close to the cars with no sidewalk there. So I'm looking forward to that. And maybe to Councillor Deacon's point, then we look at this a year from now and we see how we're doing, and we see whether we've achieved, the desired effect. So I'm going to count on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's, Councillor Laurent, I was just going to make the comment that a couple of years ago, council made the decision to turn all our 50-kilometer roads and residential roads to 40. And, we still get complaints of speeding in those areas. It really comes down to enforcement. And the photo radar, which I like, is it's permanent enforcement. Like, even if we manage to get the OPP on site, well, they're only going to be on site for a short period of time here and there. Whereas a permanent camera, well, it's going to be catching a lot more often. So I think that's definitely the route to go. Conseiller Laurent?
Well, 2 things. The first one, since you've talked about the photo radar, so I don't know where the counties are in that process, if they've started it at all. Obviously, that being a county road, and I'm sure there's more areas within the United Counties that would probably benefit from looking at that process. But it's not a quick process. It's not an easy process. There's definitely cost to the municipalities that decide to put that into place from a monitoring and reporting perspective. So we have to make sure we understand that that's part of this whole process, which I fully support. I just want to make sure that we understand that it's not going to happen tomorrow. Right? Like, this is going to be a long process to get photo radar, not because we want to drag our heels and take our time. Just the fact is, working with the ministry, working with multiple levels of government, it's just going to take time to do that. So that's one aspect. And, you know, I really do support us doing that, and just understand that, you know, the enforcement starts at 10 kilometers over. Like there is a ticket at 10 kilometers. There's a higher ticket at 11. There's a higher ticket at 12. Like, it's that technical. So understanding that, you know, that's great, we want it, but understand that you better be slowing down even during the, you know, middle of the night kind of thing, because it'll go off during those times. The one aspect that I think I don't see on here, or I don't see enough of on here, is the truck route, and it's getting those trucks off of Craig Street. I get that we did a study years ago or whatnot, and, you know, it's going to take X amount of dollars to fix 200 up. I get that. But we can't keep asking our trucks to go up right through 3 schools, down the main road, which is small and narrow, and expect there not to be safety concerns anymore. Like, we need to find a way to push them externally to the village. And that's what they want. They don't want to go down the main road because they can't turn. Like those big trucks, I watched a truck the other day, and he had to wait for 15 cars to go by just for one to stop far enough back to turn because of the length of his cab. And I get there are exceptions where when there's something being built within that little area, they have to go there. But explaining to somebody from a business perspective, when you're here, I know it's weird, but if you're here and you need to get here, and there's a road right there that you can just do that, but you have to go like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and around to get to them, that you're charging them that much extra for the gas to go all the way around, when we have roads that we could be using, or alternate roads that we could be using. And then we're ticketing all these people that are probably, those vehicles that are doing probably the right thing by not coming down the middle of the roads during school hours when there's kids all around. I just think we need to find a better way and at least get the costing of it, the true costing of what it would be to actually move those vehicles out of the downtown core. You know, contact them. You know, a company like Griffith Cartage, which is right on Route 100 and North Russell Road. Involve the people that are the ones that are within that sector. You know, there's a gentleman that worked with the trucking industry that ran for council a few times, and I'm gapping on his name. Ronbar. I'm sure that he has information on this type of stuff, or knowledge of the people that we could get involved. I just think we need to do something on that, and whether it's commission the study and do the work and come back to council and say, here's the cost. And then we can go to the public and say, well, this is the cost. How do we go about paying for this?
So I believe in the report, it states the Route 200, Monsieur Bourgon. We know the cost of making Route 200 a truck route, which was 20 million back when the study was done. I'd hate to see what it is today. But if that's something council wants to investigate, I mean, I'm not sure, Mr. Fawn and Monsieur Bourgon, any idea how much a study like that would cost?
It depends if, to what extent, if it's only internally, if we hired someone to do the analysis. Based on the traffic counts that we have, the percentage of truck is really low. I know for a fact lots of trucks already go around Russell. They're already using Route 400 most of the time. Speaking by experience, my dad's a truck driver. If he goes from one home hardware to the other, he'll use Route 400. So, depending of what exactly does council want, if we hire externally, that will be extra costs that we can bring back to the budget discussion.
So I heard you say something. So with the traffic counts that we do, we're able to see how many large vehicles are going through. That's correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So maybe that's something to do internally first?
We can start with traffic counts through the a good period of time to give us a good analysis.
Yeah, see if we're talking about, 5%, 25%, 30, 50%, and have a good idea of how many trucks are actually coming through. That won't tell us whether they're local or not, but at least it'll give us a good impression of how much of the traffic is actually
And
larger vehicles.
Craig Street throughout the summer won't be a good example.
Well, no,
Uh,
not with the reconstruction at this point in time. But it could be something that we can look at for possibly another street or once the work is done. Mr. Fonin?
Just a comment on that to Councilor Lorraine's question. I mean, the short answer is we can do whatever council directs us to do with regard to the costing. We can add that, and council will decide what comes off the list. As we do when we get to the budget discussion, there'll be priorities, and this could be discussed in terms of an estimate of what it would cost us to do a proper study beyond a traffic calming study, and then council can decide what other objective comes off that list, which is not as great a priority. The low-tech solution, it sounds like, is to initiate the traffic study locally with our own resources or minimal resources, and provide you at least with an initial response about what we're seeing, and then subsequent to that, decide if it warrants a more thorough external consultation, which will cost a lot more money.
And I believe probably look at when the last time we did our traffic count on Craig, or the counties. The counties might have done one recently and might have that information readily available for us to check. So, okay, Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, again, living right on the corner of that area, I've watched for the last 15 years, especially with all the development in the Sunset Flats and Russell Trails. I can tell you for a fact that most of the heavy truck traffic is necessarily coming from the southwest, southeast. A lot using Craig Street and a lot coming up Concession. And I mean, I'm one of the ones who was complaining years ago because my house shakes. It's on Lita Clay. It's just shaking all day long. Nothing has ever cracked, which is a miracle. But so I don't know. I applaud Jamie's suggestion that we look at that. I didn't even think to bring it up for Craig because I've lost those arguments for years about because of all of that traffic necessarily coming down, making the right turn to go north to go up. And we've got another 125 acres, 115 acres teed up now ahead of Sunset Flats. And I don't see much changing in terms of where the truck traffic is going to come to deliver all the cement, which comes down Craig, and the gravel, which comes down Craig and sell the concession. To hope or think that they might be able to use Route 100 or 200 for that purpose, but I'm all for it if we want to talk about truck traffic on Craig. I just thought it was a non-starter all these years.
Perfect. Well, I think we've had a lot of discussion on this, and again, when Monsieur Bourgon, I'm not sure, you mentioned the $20 million cost to that study. I'm not sure if you can just pull it out of the mothballs, have a quick look and give us an estimate at budget time to say, it was 20 million back then. With today's prices, we're probably, just rate of inflation, that for what kind of picture we'd be looking at. And that way council can have that discussion at budget time and say, okay, well, if this is the cost, is that somewhere we want to go? And as Mr. Fonin said, if council decides to go that route, then it'll probably have to cut into something else. So, but definitely have the discussion at budget time. Councillor Larray?
And I really don't believe, that everything can get done in 1 year. Like, it's going to be a multi-year process to get us to where we want to go, right? Like I said, with photo radar, that's going to take at least 2 years, at minimum, from my understanding of the process. And, so the truck, whether we do stuff with the truck, or that could take 5 years. But at least there's a plan in place at that point in time to do something, right? And whether that's, whatever we can come down with,
Okay, perfect. Councillor Ternosky?
So I'd like to pull this item, please.
Okay, we'll vote on this one separately. Thank you very much, Mr. Fon and Mr. Bourgon. Next item J. Question period will be at the question period later on the agenda. Next item, new snowplow purchase report ISPW 03-2023. The council received report ISPW 03-2023 dated January 30th, 2023, and approved the purchase of two 2023 Western Star tandem diesel snowplow truck in the amount of $764,616.70 plus $13,457.25 HST for a total of $778,073.95. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration?
I was just gonna add, normally that would be in part of the budget, but because of the delivery time of the equipment nowadays, we want to put the order as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Prochain item, next item, item K, appel d'offres de pavage 2023, rapport ISPW 04-2023. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport ISPW 04-2023, daté du 30 janvier 2023, et autorise l'administration à inclure les quantités dans l'appel d'offres de pavage selon le projet 6 juin. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Lalonde?
It may not be direct, but it's indirect. I was looking through the road report, and that forms the basis and the support for some of this budget, and I see, so it's a clarification, Mr. Mayor, that, and because I haven't been involved in the previous budget, there's a recommendation for a minimum sustaining budget to deal with the shorter-term issues for paving of about $2.345 million a year, $2.34 million. Are we spending that minimum limit at this point in time, at least? That's question one.
I believe the answer is going to be no, but I'll let Monsieur Bourgon speak to that one.
I would like to say yes, but council did lots of work in the past years. We were at, if I remember correctly, 1.2 million investment, and council been increasing that budget. And if I'm basing myself on last year's budget, we're at 1.7 now. And so that's the number I've used to prepare a list based on where we are on our list approved in 2019 to have a placeholder in our tender. So to secure that quantity of the $1.7 million worth of paving, and so in terms of process, at least we can have those items provisional part of the tender and have the discussion on that specific list during our, like in February with the budget discussion. And if council, based on those discussions, if there's change to be made, we'll do an addendum to our tender to replace those segments.
Further context, if I remember well, that's historically, the previous council has been adding 1% to taxation every year, specifically to try and eliminate that deficit, if you will. Monsieur Godin, if I remember well, we reduced the deficit by 20 or 25% last mandate.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Bonsoir, Chambres du Conseil. That's correct. I think we had targeted 20%, if I'm not mistaken.
And we went
above that and reduced it by 25.
Yeah, so we're going in the right direction. I'd love to say, again, last year, 1% represented 140,000. You know, we're talking about a 10% hike if we want to fix it in 1 year. If council decides to have that discussion, we can have that discussion, but Conseiller Lorrain?
So just to be clear on this one, when it gets to resolutions, that we are approving the amount of 1.7, we are not necessarily approving the actual list of paving projects.
That's correct. That'll be
done at budget based on the 1.7 that we've included in the tender that we've pre-approved tonight in this.
Yeah, we'll be able to make adjustments at the budget session. Monsieur Bourgon?
Yeah, and I was gonna have since we're joining with the county on this tender to increase our quantity, and we've seen in last year there's a good benefit of doing that. So since they're releasing the tender before we'll actually have our discussion, so I want to make sure that I do have like an amount of quantity to put in our tender. So at least for the interest of the bidders, they'll know that there's that quantity of paving.
That value of work. Yeah. Councillor Lalonde?
Just have one or two follow-ups. So by approving the 1.7, do I understand that there's still room to debate this at budget time for a higher amount of money?
Definitely.
And I think I understood, yes. And I understand we've received over the years some grants by the
Province, yeah.
towards the cost of paving. So if we were applying for that again, that amount could be added to this. This is Township's money at the 1.7. That's not including grants?
Yeah, Monsieur Bourgon?
Yeah, so you'll see the full breakdown of where we allocated our grants to the different projects, but Monsieur Godin could correct me, but there's some grants in that $1.7 million.
Federal gas tax, OCIF, that kind of stuff. Monsieur Godin, anything to add?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to confirm that there is some federal gas tax that's allocated to roads on a yearly basis.
Yeah. So it's not 1.7 plus grants, it's 1.7 including the grants. Follow up?
So just my last comment question is, because I had an exchange with Jonathan about a section that is on the minds of a lot of people in Russell, which is a section going out on North Russell Road, which is, I would say at this point, the way I would describe it is that it is in poor condition. And there was a rough estimate for the portion that could be repaired as opposed to doing all of it, that still came out to about $800,000 or $850,000 to do that stretch, which is from Union Cemetery all the way down to Griffiths, certainly not to take it to the corner. So I appreciate what this stuff costs. That's $850,000 to do the equivalent, less than 2 kilometers. But if I thought, there was some money that was discovered that allowed us, because I revert back to the report, it's not urging, but it's encouraging and setting a minimum and I appreciate in years gone by, it just didn't get done and we're playing catch up. But it still points to a minimum of a $2.3 million a year to take care of the short term. And I guess because we're not doing that is why there seems to be quite a number of roads and roadways that are we're just not getting to them, and I just leave that as my last comment.
No, totally agree. I think pretty much every municipality in Canada is in the same boat. Almost nobody I've heard of is actually meeting that minimum. Hence why we're always asking the province and the federal to increase the infrastructure budget that they give us. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're saying and making comments on are going to come out during the budget session, and you're going to see that type of information. And you say, well, it's $850,000 to do that section of road, and how are we ever going to come up with that, and are we going to be able to do it? Well, just as an example, last year we introduced a second stream of funding for our roads, and that second stream of funding was built on 1% tax increase. That second stream was able to fund an $850,000 project to do 400 to 500 on St. Andre Road. So there are ways to do it. That was that 1% was now the payment amount for probably a 4 or 5 year period on a loan to do that project. So there are creative ways to try and get us to a point where we can do these additional projects over and above the 1.7 million. That is our regular amount for roads projects within the municipality. We just have to understand what they are, what the impacts are, and how we can go about doing it. And that one right there is a perfect example of how we could in the future do stuff like that. So
Yeah, the 1%, seems like a small amount, but compounded yearly adds up over time. So, other questions or comments on this one? Hearing, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item L, Management Review of DWQMS Report ISWAT 01-2023. That Council received Report ISWAT 01-2023 dated January 30th, 2023, and acknowledge receipt of the minutes taken at the QMS Management Review meeting held on December 15th, 2022. Questions, members of council? Councillor Tarnowski, Conseiller Lalonde.
So there were, in the report, there were 5 OFIs, opportunities for improvement. Can we just get an update on the recommendations? And I just wanted to underline that there was also one on cybersecurity, which goes back to a previous discussion we had.
Mr. Fawnin, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci. We are working on those OFIs, so they're part of our, like, some of them are annual. There was one bylaws being prepared to present to council, so we are at least in a position that they'll be completely complete shortly.
Okay.
To address the need of the improvement.
Okay. In regards to the cybersecurity one,
I'll have.
Mr. Fawnin, did you want to comment on that one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to suggest that perhaps we come back with an update and go with exactly what's been completed in the OFIs, including the cybersecurity.
Okay.
Yeah, my memory is escaping of exactly what was the intent of that specific Wi-Fi.
Okay. We're all getting gray hairs, Monsieur Bourgon. Conseiller Lalonde.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Just au micro, Monsieur Lalonde.
Just a clarification. There was a mention in the report, and I'll just quote it. It said SAI Global mentions that a recommendation for recertification of the standard and the scope of certification identified in this report is on hold pending the receipt, review, and acceptance of the corrective action taken. So I just wanted to know where that was at, if it's since been reinstated or we've been recertified.
Okay, Monsieur Bourgon.
For that specific item, that was resolved like a week or two after. We just had to separate or clarify the way we present our
information.
Our information, exactly. So that was the only thing that was noted throughout that external audit, but that was rectified right away.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions or comments on this report? Councillor Deakin?
Thank you. In the minutes, there was a note about staffing challenges, and I was just wondering if there's an update, if you do have a full staffing complement at this point, if those had been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Monsieur Bourgon?
There will be an ongoing effort. We know that it's a specific trade. So every time that we had posting in the past, it's always difficult, or the amount of applicant is really.
Yeah, that's one of those industries that it's very, not as many people going in as people going out. Unfortunately, it can be very challenging and very specific in regards to the technical knowledge needed. Okay, questions, comments? Anything else to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Maybe just if I can have that report to council, it's mandate, so it's part of the law to inform the owner of our water system.
Yep.
In March, I'll be presenting the annual report that gives us what happened with our boat system throughout the year 2022.
Thank you very much. And I believe, members of council, you're scheduling dates for our mandatory, they call it the Walkerton course. I can't remember the exact title, but
Standard of care.
Standard of care. So we'll be getting dates that we'll have to attend those meetings. I believe they're done virtually now. That's correct. Okay. Prochain item, item M, création d'un comité ad hoc sur le logement abordable et réalisable, rapport CAO 02-2023. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CAO 02-2023 daté du 30 janvier 2023 pour approbation et soutien, qu'il nomme un président ou des coprésidents pour diriger un comité d'ad hoc communautaire. Il est également recommandé qu'après sa création, ce comité ad hoc présente ses conclusions et ses recommandations au Conseil au plus tard en décembre 2023. Mr. Fawnin, did you want to speak to this one to start it off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue of affordable housing is Canada-wide. In fact, it's globally an issue of concern. In Ontario alone, we're short many hundreds of thousands of homes, and on the affordable side, nearly that number. I personally welcome the concept of this community digging in and examining this issue to determine first, clearly, what is the problem, what is the challenge for us specifically in the Township of Russell. Second, looking for partnerships within the community and outside the community, and look to see where we can make a contribution to dealing with this issue. And then third, actually doing something concretely. We are at phase one. We are at the information gathering stage to determine the scope of the problem. So the idea of an ad hoc committee, and by its definition, the ad hoc committee is intended to have a start date and an end date, to go out, gather information, develop those partnerships, develop a plan, and come back to council with recommendations. It's possible that this committee's mandate could be elongated after a time, but that's for council to decide. But for now, we sort of laid out in the report the scope for the establishment of the committee, which would then go away and clarify its scope again and its terms of reference, and then begin to do its work. It's a lot of labor. One thing that has been brought to my attention recently from attending a couple of conferences and some other documentation that's come in is that this issue is being addressed by other parties in the province. We've attached a couple of addendums to the report. So we're not alone we're not doing this in isolation. This committee would work in a constellation of organizations and associations that are looking to deal with this issue in Ontario, and particularly in Eastern Ontario, and then particularly in our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fannin. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Deakin?
I'd just like to say that I'm very supportive of this committee being struck, and I'm excited at the possibility of the partnerships and of Russell Township putting signals out there to potential partners as well as colleagues across the region that this is a priority for us. And I think that doing so, putting in this effort now, will hopefully generate the results that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? Conseiller Lalonde?
Oui, j'aimerais remercier quand même le Conseil d'avoir pris les mesures pour mettre un comité en place. I'm excited about, and for the same reasons of Councillor Deakin, that it sends that message that we know we have some work to do, and to the CAO's comment, it's a question now of doing a proper needs analysis to find out exactly where we need to concentrate efforts, be it in seniors, developmentally disabled, physically disabled, low-income families. Will hopefully this committee, which I would support, of course, wholeheartedly, can get to the root of that issue. So I applaud that effort.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? I tend to agree. I think it is a big file, which is normally not done at the lower tier municipality, mostly done at the upper tier or regional. In this case, we saw some documentation from the EWOC group. I think the terms of reference will be the key indicators coming forward. Definitely we need a needs analysis. I think we also need a comparative analysis to understand where we sit in relation to others. Because, if we're at, for example, 5% needed of our population needs it, and other municipalities are at 25%, when it comes to applying for grants, well, we might have a harder time attracting those type of investments from provincial or federal partners. So I think I'm looking forward to the terms of reference and seeing what kind of work this committee can put forward. And I think we need to talk a little bit in regards to the composition of the committee. This is very much a specific type of committee. This is not, we have the chair and the vice chair. My recommendation is we're probably looking at, 5 members of the public, but 5 members who need expertise in this field. So I'll ask council's direction. Are we okay with trying to hand-pick members who have those kind of qualifications? We can go like standard committee, put it out in the general public and ask for people to apply. But if they have no experience or no knowledge, I'm thinking of, people outside our community who work in social services, who work in this type of industry. That's the type of people I think we need to attract for this committee. So if member of council agree with that, I think that we should start off by trying to handpick members of this committee. Obviously, the chair and the vice chair, you're passionate about this. You might already have some contacts of people who have this type of expertise. And if we can't find enough people to fill that committee, then we can go out to the general public and see. But just looking for thoughts on that. Is that something you guys agree with, or would you like to take another process. Councillor Lalonde, Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I spent the last year looking in and on all of this, and spent time with some people at the regional level that have been a huge help to me. Alain Lasselle at UCPR, Valeris here, and at their main offices in Plantagenet. We know people in our communities that have lived experience in this as well. I think certainly we need to have some people with a lot of good experience, because we've given ourselves a short timeline of getting to December and having something ready. And I think that's going to require that we have at least 2 experts or people working directly in those areas in affordable housing. Maybe 3. I think it would be helpful to have a few persons from residents from within our communities as well. But I have to lean towards that side of getting some expertise, regional and local. We have, when I say Valoris, I spent quite a bit of time with them. I'm on one of their consultative committees already. They have a lot of people living in the area, so I think a mix of the 2, depending on who would agree to step forward at the local and regional level. I'd be open to some persuasion or discussion on that with whoever ends up chairing and co-chairing to help set that or prepare that path.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deacon?
I'd like to see at least a couple of the positions on the committee be made through a call to the public. I think that we do that with all of our committees, and Mr. Mayor, you've done a good job of making selections based on the qualifications that come through in that application process. So I'm confident that we'll be able to encourage certain folks that we know that have already expressed interest to this work, but also making sure that the wider public is aware that this is taking place and has the opportunity. You never know who you don't know. We're still a small community, but every day new folks are coming into our neighborhoods, and they're bringing incredible skills and perspectives. So I think that a mix of the 2, or just doing an open process with us, encouraging certain people, and we'll see the qualifications that come through on the other side as per the requirements of what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, how about we post for the 5 positions. We go through our contacts. If we think there's people that apply locally, definitely, they can apply. And we can also look at if we have external contacts of people who sits on boards or other government agencies that aren't necessarily in the area but are willing to come and sit at the table, then definitely they should be sending us their information, and then I'll review everything and discuss it with the chair and the co-chair and see how we want to go from there. Everybody okay with that process? Mr. Fawnin, we're good with that?
Very good, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, item N, update Township of Russell Fire and Rescue Services Chief CAO verbal report. Mr. Fawnin.
Merci. Here's some good news. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ça m'a fait grand plaisir d'annoncer que notre chef Brian McBain est disponible maintenant de prendre son rôle à temps plein permanemment comme chef pompier débutant le 1er avril. So I'd like to welcome Chief McBain to the senior leadership team of the Township. Wish him very well in his new duties in leading our fire service, and wish him the best of luck.
Thank you very much. Chief, congratulations. You'd like to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege and honor to serve our great community in the Township of Russell. And thank you all for your support, and I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. With that, item 12, item 12, reports on investigator or the ombudsman, we have none. Item 13, notice of motions, we have none. Item 14, question period on the meeting of the day. If anyone has any questions in regards to the agenda, I invite you to come up to the lectern and state your name, address, and the question, please.
Deborah Bourne, 93. Sorry, 93 Craig Street.
It's all good.
How many bollards will be going in from Mill Street to Forest Road?
Monsieur Bourgon, I believe currently we have one set on Mill Street. We have one at almost at Hamilton. In your plans, is there other sets of bollards or reallocation?
Based on the discussion we had with council earlier, we could implement one near Force.
Okay.
There's a section between Parklands and Forest where it's very, very narrow. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that, where the sidewalk is there and then the amount of whatever you call it before the road,
The shoulder.
The shoulder is extremely narrow. And parents with children are very concerned about walking on that sidewalk because the shoulder is so narrow. Is it possible between Parklands and Forest that you put more?
Monsieur Bourgon?
We'll have to limit the amount, but by Force, we can look at the possibility around Parkland or that area.
Figure where the best suit is for a set of bollards.
Yeah, there's a bridge there, so just before the bridge, between Parklands and the bridge. The other question I have, in the discussion, I didn't hear the reason for no community safety zone. When we get photo radar, the fines are doubled, so it's a
Right.
revenue source. Could I have the reason, please?
Yeah, Mr. Fawn and Monsieur Bourgon.
It would be the same explanation as why we're not recommending to maintain the 40 all the time.
Right.
Because it doesn't work.
So what you're looking for is basically by having a community safety zone, you're doubling the fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
So you're punitive, right?
Yeah, it's a consequence, change behavior. And we also know that we don't know, anecdotally, from 50 to 64, people will drive because they know they get a ticket at the higher amount. So from 40 to 55, at least we're reducing the speed by some. So that's my rationale for putting it down to 40 all the time.
Right. Well, as mentioned earlier during the conversation, I think at this point in time, staff are confident that the changes that will be implemented will have an impact on what's coming. If it's up to council, if we want to implement a community safety zone at that point in time, I think it's a little bit premature. I think we see how it goes, and then if it's still becoming an issue, even after photo radar, then then definitely we can look at implementing that. Monsieur Bourgon?
Just to remind council that the procedure would be to send a resolution to county council for even for the community zone as well.
Yeah. So just in regards to community safety zones, I'm not sure if you know this, Monsieur Bourgon, but Mill Street, I shouldn't say, Russell Public is not actually on Craig Street. It's actually on Mill Street. Is that correct? So can we put a community safety zone on a street that's technically not in front of the school?
That's a good question. I would like to validate that to make sure I give the right answer to council.
I'm just curious if they say, you can put a community safety zone within a certain amount of the school, or I don't know, I have no idea if there's a clause that said it has to be on the school, because obviously we can't just throw it in the middle of town because there's a school down the block, right? So.
Well, the entrance into the school is from Craig Street and from Mill Street, and the children get dropped off on Craig Street and Mill Street.
So I think there's the parking is on Mill Street as far as I know. Councillor Leddy?
There's already a community safety sign right at Mill Street on one of the sides of the road, is there not?
Concession has a community safety zone, but Craig Street does not.
I think she's talking in regards to when you do a community safety zone, then the fines are automatically doubled.
Right, but I thought I seen a community safety sign on Craig Street.
School zone.
School zone.
Is it a school zone?
Yeah, terminology is close, but not quite the same as far as the law goes. So.
And my last question is, when Hamilton was paved, it said no trucks. Is that, now that it's been a while, are trucks allowed on Hamilton?
Monsieur Bourgon?
At this time, it remains local traffic only for trucks.
There you go. The paving didn't make a difference, it's still local truck route.
And the comment in the presentation that was done today indicated that most of the traffic goes on 400. So could we have a sign coming into Russell that says local trucks only?
Monsieur Bourgon, is adding a sign any issues for local traffic, local truck traffic only?
So same logic as the speed zone. A resolution need to be sent to the county.
Okay.
If let's say we put a no truck, there would be no truck mostly everywhere in Russell. So a truck going to the new subdivision will still need to go on Craig Street.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But if it's simply put up a sign, then it's putting up a sign. If it's local traffic, they're still going to be going that route. It's not, the sign won't necessarily make a difference, right? Okay, Councilor Lorrain?
I don't want to over-analyze it, but what would local truck mean? Right? Like somebody's building a house and they have to have trucks come down. Those trucks can come from Kentville, they can come from Ottawa.
No, to me, it means you don't go through Craig Street to get to Embrun, which is what happens.
Okay,
Right, but if they're stopping in Russell before getting to Embrun,
That's okay, but
Right.
there's tractor trailers, there's those things with new cars on them, they're going through.
yeah, I think as well, something we have to remember is, correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Bordeaux, but bylaw has no authority to stop a vehicle, correct? That is solely the OPP's responsibility?
Yes, we can advise them once they're stopped, but we cannot actually stop them, physically stop.
Right. And once are they stopped, are we permitted to give tickets?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Monsieur Bourgon, I think, if it's adding a local truck sign, I would be fine if, you brought back a resolution to send to the counties at the next meeting, stating to ask them to put up some signs of local traffic only. We'd probably put it up right after, I would say, right after Old Town.
Well, that would bring us back to the conversation we had about just the truck route in general. By doing that, that means there's no truck route in Russell whatsoever.
No, but local traffic
Well,
only.
I think the analysis needs to go to the truck route and not specifically just put sign as based on the resolution. I think we need to look at the flow of traffic. It's more than just putting signs, and any truck driver coming from Ottawa, well, you need to have more than just local traffic coming in town. I think it goes back to bring back more info or look at the traffic counts and to see more of the big picture.
Perhaps, Monsieur Bourgon, what I would suggest in that case is, we've done that study in the past, right? The analysis of the truck routes, I believe, was done between bylaw and infrastructure a few years ago, maybe. We looked at the truck routes.
Well, we've looked at the percentage of truck, yes.
Yes, but I believe there was actually a report to council that came back in regards to truck routes. Maybe we can dig that up and just bring it forward to council for refresher, if you will. I think that's start there. Council can have that discussion, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a report come to council on the truck routes. Nothing changed, but Madame Bordeaux?
You mean to update the bylaw or
No.
just to the initial bylaw?
Well, I think there was a report. Council has had this discussion multiple times over the years. I think at one point, the direction was given to the administration to look at the current or then current truck routes, no truck routes, that kind of stuff, and to bring back any changes to council. I don't think any were recommended, and I don't think council made any changes to the truck route at that point in time, but I'm pretty sure there was a report that came to council.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, so maybe if we can find that report and just bring it back for information purposes to council that way, or just email it to council, that way we can have a look at it. But I'm pretty sure we we looked at that issue previously.
There is a truck route map on your site.
Yeah, I think there was a report that was staff at the time had looked at the new truck route and had come forward to council with a report to say, okay, well, we've looked at it, and I don't think any changes were recommended or approved at that point in time. But just a refresher for, refresher for those who've been here a while, and for the new members of council to have a look at that and see if, different perspective, so many years later.
Yeah, I thank you for all your time and consideration on this, especially Mr. Brogon. I've given him probably some trouble. But we just want safety, particularly for the children. That's the main thing.
Thank you. That's something we all want.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, madame. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yep, it's Sherry Graves Morrison. I'm at 34 Craig Street. Just a couple of questions. When you said, you talk about bollards around, are those
Plastic things in the middle of the road?
thingies
Yes,
that you only put up when it's good weather because you can't do them in the winter?
that's
because-
correct.
And they're always in the way. Probably Craig Street is very narrow.
Yep.
So somebody I have people with their large trucks, whatever, pickup truck kind of thing. And even if they have trouble, if two are trying to pass, certain parts of Craig are very narrow. Having said that, I don't think they're as effective as, of course, the traffic cameras are perfect.
Right.
And I think the cost of it, a lot of it, the revenue should be shared with Russell Township, because it would be a major source of revenue, as well as a deterrent. I think that's number one. You lived on Craig for a long time, and with the traffic, I have two questions. The traffic survey, does it designate the kind of truck and the size and the weight in the report, or is it just how many trucks?
Right,
versus
when
cars?
you're talking the count, the traffic count?
Well, yeah.
Monsieur Bourgon?
So it won't give us the weight, but it will give us the type of vehicle. So
Well, the
between a
weight's
tandem, a
important.
triaxle, or those long train, we'll know
Okay.
the percentage of each type.
Right, so if it's a pickup truck, it's going to just be a regular vehicle.
Yeah.
But if it's a bigger than a
Well,
pickup truck, we'll know
that's-
exactly what it
It's
is.
especially in the bigger trucks.
Yep.
How many are coming, you really need to know that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, there's sewer construction going on. I'm not sure how long or how the length that's being done. I assume it's around McDougall, but I'm not positive. But the status of Craig Street, as well as Concession, are very old roads. They were never built for heavy-duty trucks or the volume of traffic that's coming into town. So if you're renovating, like, are we upgrading Craig Street's structure, pavement, or whatever? If you're doing sewer, that's major.
Yeah, so just to clarify, those are two county roads, and I believe they're built up to county standards, which are higher than our municipal roads. So
Right.
they're already built up to higher standards.
But lower to what we have today. They're old, right? They were put in a long time ago.
Right, but they would have been built up with time, Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, so the structure of pavement, there's probably over a foot of pavement by location. So it's a
I'm
really
talking-
strong road,
Right.
even though they're old.
I'm talking substructure, where you're talking about leader clay. Russell has a huge amount of a high water table. They have certain parts of leader clay. We know where they are. Certain parts have been allowed to build townships and residential when coming very close to leader clay or almost on them. To the detriment of other council members. Anyway,
So
it's
just,
history.
just to be clear though, the roads, the county roads will meet standards of the county road, correct, Monsieur Bourgon? They have no
Yes,
choice.
Exactly, it will. And regardless of the substructure, as you mentioned, being on clay, vibration do carry. And that, our road will be built as a county standard, but we'll still have a vibration. And unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done.
Except I'm at 34, I'm a relatively newer house, well, 30 years old, whatever. And across the road is an older bungalow, and we talk about how much the house shakes. I'm with you, I haven't had any structures, but I said, to my neighbor, I said, well, those big trucks coming through, we know when they're going through. It's
Right.
usually 7 in the anyway,
So-
coming out of Craig. Anyway, but they have it far worse than I do. You're gonna have, and you're going to build and broaden it and make it more lively and put sidewalks in. You also have a seniors home coming in there. It's like, we gotta do something to have the traffic going properly. I agree with my neighbor saying that You need the warning signs earlier. Russell's growing. You have a 50-mile limit. It's like almost a wave, like all of a sudden, everybody's braking coming into town because they don't realize they're in Russell, you know? And I think you have your right ideas.
Yep.
You just got to execute them.
Well, I think that's the plan. I think that's what Monsieur Bourgon and his team and the counties are working on, and lots of changes coming this year.
Well, and I do thank you for saying the comment that there was a lot of information coming out, but not any two-way. That was yourself. I think that's very important, and I'd like to see it continue because I got the sense that it's not.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Questions, my apologies.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Charles Armstrong, 85 Castlebow in Embrun. It's on the item, let me go back here, 11L, the drinking water quality management standard. And I notice in the appendix for the opportunities for improvement, at item 13, it says, given the recent events pertaining to the suspension of one of the supervisors, what events would occur that would suspend a supervisor? And because it's in the technical report that's presented to council and then goes to the ministry, were those technical deficiencies directly threatening the water quality in the township?
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fawn and Monsieur Bourgon?
There was no threat to the water system.
Okay.
Yeah, and the event?
The event in question, there's many events that could have led to that being put in the report.
Yeah, but I'm not, that's not something I can discuss tonight.
Okay, Mr. Fawnin, anything to add?
Just want to add the comment, some of this is related to personal issues which we are not able to discuss, but the issue was related to administrative issues, there was nothing technical, there was no technical lapse.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing, seeing none. We've been going for a couple hours. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back, 7-8 minute break, and we'll be back at 8:05 p.m. Thank you.